Cooper's back. It is buy, hold, risk it, and sell. We're going to go through his team first and then all of the potential options and the sells this week. Scoop had a cracker week with 1,005. He almost stuffed up. He went Cleary as vice and Manu as captain, but thankfully for him, Hines didn't go that great, but a 267 overall rank. The boys, we're killing it. We're both in the 200s now. It's been a good turnaround. I think you've kind of been hanging around decent the entirety of the year. And yes, making the correct moves each and every week to get to this point. So Scoop, tell us about the squad and then some potential moves.
Yeah, I'm really happy with the core unit of my team. It's performing each and every week. Just a couple of rough edges with guys like Couchman and Bula in, just sort of pushing it back a little bit in the past few weeks. Tapine came back with a 50-plus score, which was nice. But yeah, Manu captain, I was at Magic Round on Sunday, actually, and it was fine weather right up until 10 minutes before the Roosters-Cowboys game, and my heart sunk, man. But it just shows you how good of an asset Manu is in the spine when he had an awful game, missed a bunch of tackles, and still managed 50.
Yeah, he didn't play that great, did he? He just racks them up, and then they love an update on him, don't they? They seem to miss a lot with him. What, the week before last, he was up 12, I think, and then he was up 9 this round. Was he 41 before updates?
Yeah, 41, and I appreciated those extra 18 points, doubled him as captain, so took me over 1,000 in final updates.
Yeah, you snuck ahead of me. I was ahead, Justin. I think you got me by 7 in the end, so there you go. That Tanner Boyd 7 points just killed me as well, but there you go. So you said you're potentially looking at holding this week. How would that work with your 17? Who would be your 16 and 17th man?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. I'm probably going to have to play Oloapu. I'm not too enthusiastic about that. But the problem is I can't figure out who to bring in that actually works well for my buy coverage in the next couple of weeks. I'd like to bring in Tavare potentially early, but Ford is somebody who I was planning to sell after round 13, and I can't seem to find anybody who doesn't sort of really mess up my round 16 strategy and leave me with too many guys on the buy and having to sell a bunch. So I might end up holding and just hoping that Oloapu can push out a 30 this week, or maybe a late switch to start.
So is that theory more around, because they have the buy in round 16, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, so it'd be more just holding a trade now to then you would have to do an extra trade if you traded him now to someone who misses 16, and then you have to trade them out as well. Is that kind of the theory, just saving a trade there?
Yeah, that's the theory. There's guys like Tatola that I could potentially go for. I was also thinking about Tohu and Horsburgh, but I have Tapine and DeBellin as well, and if I get all three of those, none of them are going to be playing in round 16, so I'm going to have a really tough time trying to move everything around for those middle positions. So my plan at the moment is to bring in Tavare next week for Couchman when he's starting, and sell Jackson Ford for probably TPJ, bottomed out in round 14, and a lot of guys in round 14 that play both 16 and 19.
That seems fair. Any thought on Hopgood or any of the Eels guys as a potential option?
Yeah, I quite like Hopgood. He'd be the only one I'd probably look to go for. Too expensive. I just need to know what's happening with Origin, hey, and he needs more than probably 55, 60 minutes.
Right, so not super convinced. Plus, would you have the money this week to get him? Like, you'd go forward up to him, but how would you get the extra?
I would go close. I think I'm very close, but I'm not sure. No, I missed by 4K, so that's taking it out of my hands.
Much in the bank?
I got about 170 in the bank from last week, going Oloapu from Alamotti.
Okay, awesome. There you go. That's the squad. I like it. That's good thoughts there. What trades remaining?
21. So I'm potentially going to be able to go really hard in the next couple of weeks. If I hold off a little bit, and then I think I'll be really set to push my mid-season cash generation and points.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully you can still score well enough this next couple of weeks with potentially holding, and obviously holding Ford next week as well. What do you got? Ford? You don't have Johnston, do you? Oh, you do. Yeah. Ford, Johnson. That's all next week, hey? And then you'd have... Who else out? Couchman. That'd be it, hey? Everyone else will be playing.
Yeah, Couchman will probably be Tavare next week as long as he's named, which he probably should be, but as amateurs often like to say as well,
yeah,
things can happen at training. They can get injured. They can get dropped. People can go back early. It's just safer to wait a week.
Yeah, every chance Branko comes back in that side anyway. But there you go. Let's move on to that great man, Tafade. And my general thoughts as well as yours is just holding off this week, guys. In Supercoach, I think he's not as bad of a guy to slot in because you have 25 players. But with Fantasy, guys, you have 21. And each of those players are so important each and every week. Like, just noticing myself this week, having Murdoch Masila, who we don't want to play, having Tommy Talau, who we don't want to play, and then you have a couple of Dolphins guys out. I know most people have more. Like, I've got Lemuelu and also Isaiah Katoa there, whereas I know other people have Nicarima as well. You could potentially have Jeremy Marshall-King, and that just brings you down to a very poor 15 or 16 players. Maybe having Tommy Talau and Ben Medok-Masila as your 16 and 17 if you're not trading, or just having one of them as your 17, and that's why waiting on Tafade is going to be worth it, because if he doesn't make that squad, then you have another one of those red dots that it sounded like he was probably going to play, and he probably does at some point, but you can't bank on that. So yeah, that's why you'd hold off on him. But we're very excited for him, aren't we, Locke? If he does happen to get the start.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he couldn't have had a much better debut than that. He's almost up to cult hero status for Dolphins already. And I mean, that run for that first try just shows why he was bashing down the door to be in the team. Defense might need a tiny bit of work, but he can work on that. But what an absolute weapon he could be for them in the centres.
Definitely. It's more just positioning, right? Because he still made 20 tackles for 3 misses, but yeah, they did score. Obviously, Ronaldo's down that side. Talakai scored really well as well, so yeah, makes sense. So what we're thinking about there, but he's up against Branko Lee, isn't he? So how hard is it to break that door down? But if he does get a start next week, slot him in your side. Okay, Billy Smith. He's actually up about 3% in terms of people picking him in their sides. He is an awkward price at centre. And when was the last time he strung a bunch of games together? That's the thing with Billy, right?
Yeah, that's the problem. I think he's had 3 ACL reconstructions. He's just one of those guys that injuries just follow around. But he doesn't score too badly at centre, but he is very up and down. When you take his 70-plus minute scores, he's got anything from 14 and 17 in 80 minutes to like a 50 into 60, like we've seen. So he looked very good on the weekend footy-wise. So I think there's definitely reason that he can be all right. Especially with Paul Momirovski being out for 12 weeks with that shoulder reconstruction. It's now going to depend on when Walker comes back and Manu moves to the centres. Or maybe Suoli'i finally moves to the wing. Maybe they accept that he's a winger and Billy Smith stays there. But yeah, you've got to also think about those up and down scores as well.
Yeah, it was an absolute banger of a game. That's actually the most meters he's gained and the most tackles he's ever made in that 15 games that he's played. So that's something to think about in itself. And obviously there's those 3 games that are lower than that 70 minutes that you're speaking about, and all of them are under 10 points in injury affected games. So that's 3 games out of 15, or I think just less actually than 15, that he's missed from injury. So it's very scary to slot him in. If he was basement price and you think he could keep a spot in the side, then fair enough, but he also doesn't play 13. So I think there's almost, there's guys in, I don't think we really need too many centers and wing fullbacks anyway. Like if you've got a Sloan, you probably just hold him rather than trade him to Billy. And then you can go up just that little bit more, like sort of 70, 80K, and get some of these Tatolas and Highland Lukis and these kind of guys that have way more upside and in a position you probably want some okay scoring anyway. So, and they play around 13. So there's so many other things that go well for those guys rather than going for Billy Smith in that one. Let's talk about an interesting one that's kind of popped up this week, a sneaky option that we haven't really thought about too much, and that's Thomas Flegler. So he kind of rivals Tavita Tatola at the moment. He's 6K cheaper. I suppose my biggest thing between the both of them is that Tatola has a little bit more pedigree as a gun scorer. Flegler's done it for sort of like a 6 or 7 week period a few years ago now, in kind of, 2021, I believe, or in the back end of 21, early part of 2020. He kind of had a bunch of big scores there. We've got him at sort of when he plays over 40 minutes, guys, he averages about just under 40 there. So there's obviously some interest there, and the big thing is Payne Haas is going to be out with Origin, also Carrigan. What are your thoughts on that, Locke? Would you consider him in your side, or is it kind of at the moment?
He's sort of borderline. He's popped up the other day, and I had a bit of a look at him because he's quite interesting. He's dropped about 100K since that injury affected 4 he scored a couple of weeks ago, but his last 3 weeks, he's got 47, 50, and 50 minutes, which is really promising looking. That did involve one game where there was a flogging and Haast and Carrigan didn't get humongous minutes. And another one, I think, where there was an injury. But the other one still had pretty decent minutes anyway. The worry would be that Kobe Hetherington coming back continues to increase his minutes and sort of pushes Carrigan out of the lock and into the prop rotation for a couple of minutes and dents Flegler. So there are more things that can go wrong with Flegler than Tatola, but he's definitely got a little bit more momentum and a lower break even than Tatola at the moment. So potentially in that sort of 5-week stretch you can make before round 16, he might end up a little better, but it is definitely on the risky side.
Yeah, well, those last few weeks have kind of helped him with his average. So he's 33 now. And that's obviously him averaging a little bit higher in about the 37-ish. 38. Yeah, 38 exactly, actually, over the last 3 weeks, his average. So you'd expect that's actually a little bit low for him. You expect close to that 38 and 44 that he's got the last 2 weeks. And you'd say minutes probably stay somewhere around. Like, you look at all the games that he's started, the lowest one he had is a 36. And that was against the Dolphins in that one. So that was a bit of an odd one. All the rest are kind of 42, 47, 47, 50, 50. So he's up there a fair bit. And you expect that he'd be average close to 40, which means it's probably around that 10 points of value considering, you know, the way that price has dropped down. He's priced around the 30 mark, right?
Yeah, around that 30 mark or just over. He's sort of that 100 to 150k option. I don't think he's a slam dunk by any means, but he's very interesting option compared to what we've got around at that price point at the moment.
Yeah, and the only thing with him is you are going to have to trade him out in round 16 because they have so many buys following that. Very much the same as Tatola. So they're in the same boat, except Flegler has the better injury history. Obviously with Tatola having a shocker this year, and then has that lower break even than Tatola does. So we look at Tatola now. He's in the mid-30s in the break even, which is solid. 6k more expensive, and we know what he's been able to do. People were talking about him, and we were even have a little, like, people were kind of annoyed with me at the start of the season that I wasn't talking about him as an option when he was priced as 628. And I was like, I looked into it further. I was like, okay, maybe there is some, you know, ability to improve on that. So some people had him as like a 650, 700 type of price guy. So that means there's at least, you know, say probably 200k that you could gain off Tatola if you decide to pick him up. Is there interest in him at the moment, or does that game on the weekend still doesn't really show you that he has that ability to go back to those scores?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one because it depends on the rotation at South at the moment. And honestly, they're dominating. They can do whatever they want with their bench. They can take forwards off early. I did hear that Dimitri was talking about quite possibly the days of Cameron Murray being a big minute lock might be over. Liam Knight's coming off the bench to spell him. And so that could be potentially good for Tatola, but Burgess is also doing really well, and he's getting the share of the minutes over for Tatola. So until I see probably another 45-minute game or more and like a 40-point score, I'm probably not going to jump on until then.
Yeah, the 33 minutes is a real strange one, isn't it? So I suppose they're going to work him back slowly, and the game before they had to play him a little bit more. I can't remember exactly what happened, but yeah, 33 in this one didn't really give me any hope that it was going to improve. So yeah, he did score better than Luki, who we'll speak about next, but yeah, still not ideal for now. And I think I've moved him to a round 12 or round 13 buy, and he'd be a 13 and 14 kind of guy, and then hopefully make sort of 100k in that time. Scores okay. That would be the plan. Use him as, you know, a guy for those 2 rounds, make some cash, and then move him on. Luki, obviously, he's going to be down the pecking order of buys coming into this week after the soft 19 points in 54 minutes last week. But as you said with that game, you were there, and obviously the heavens opened up, and that's the last thing you want from a guy that just had an ACL injury into a hamstring injury in the mud. So I just put it down early on that he was going to play poorly, and he did. 4 missed tackles in that one. That's very high for him. He has one game in the past sort of 30 with over 2 missed tackles, and that was a 4. Everything other than that, he's a 2 and 1 or 0 type of guy. And then run meters was very, very low compared to, yes, he doesn't often get more than sort of 80 or 100, but he has tackle breaks every week in that. He has offloads majority of the time as well. So you saw there that a couple of games ago, 38 and 56 of those 2 scores there, and he hasn't scored a try yet, and he did score a bunch last year as well. So would you look at Luki this week at all, or would you just go, okay, let's wait a week or two and decide from there? Because they're very different to the Tatola and the Flegler type in that they're only out in round 15. So if you have one of like Robson, potentially Drinkwater, if you only have 2 Cowboys there, you're only going to miss 2 guys in 15. He plays 13, 16, and then 20 as well. So thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. You can 100% wait on Luki more than you can wait on the others because you don't have to sell by round 16. You can hold until potentially round 19 or even a little later if you really want. So you've got more time for him to make that money. I think that game probably was an anomaly. It was an absolute mud pit, and that's not really good for anybody to play and score in. I don't think there were that many big scores at all in that match. No. I think he'll be fine. 19's just dented his momentum a little bit, and coming off a hamstring injury where the first 2 weeks are the highest re-injury risk, like we were talking with Tatola. After that low score, his break-even's not going to go anywhere for price, and you can wait until after that 2 weeks, I think. Yeah,
I was kind of thankful he just got through it, to be honest with you. And I didn't have to play him, but I know a lot of people did. It was actually, I just read there, 25% of people in the top 1,000, top 100 bought him in. So, yeah, if he happens to continue to go poorly, then it's a win for everyone else. But if he does go well this week and get a 40-odd, then you'd definitely be looking at him next week. Someone I'm super keen on, Horsburgh. Is there a worry of Origin? Potentially. They have so many forwards. Surely, like, maybe he plays one of the games, but I doubt he plays the first. Like, if there's injuries, then I think they need to see a little bit more momentum from Hors in these big minutes dominating to be able to pick him. But that's just me. I think here that 62 minutes last week, I was kind of thankful that he only got that because he was on to a massive score, and he's by far their best forward at the moment. I think he's a must-have this week, being able to score close to that 60 mark, and he's got at least 100k to make. So, yeah, very interesting. He's very highly owned now in that top 100, 50%. I think you're going to get left behind a little bit if you don't have him in your side. But obviously, that then it pertains to like what kind of trades you make. And I don't think you pull apart your team, but if you can easily swap someone, obviously Ford is really hard to get straight to Horsburgh. You could do it, obviously, if you wanted to, with 170. I have 107 in the bank, and I can't do it exactly. But I think if you can make 2 okay trades to get him, one down to a kind of a cash cow, or if you've got a Cam Murray, you can go straight to Horsburgh and stuff like that, then it's a clear in, right? What are your general thoughts on the Horse? And obviously no real interest in your side based on the makeup, and that's probably something to think about for other people too. How many of those guys do you have that are going to have buys in round 16 in your mids?
Yeah, definitely. Horsburgh is one of the best options at the moment. I would probably put him... It's hard to put him ahead of DeBellin given just how well DeBellin's going, but he's very, very solid, and at his price, he's very interesting and a very easy buy if you don't have too many forwards out. I unfortunately have Tapine already, so unless I move him to Horsburgh, I probably don't want to do that. I think there's probably 3 spots in the Queensland team between 7 players, and so there's not a huge chance Horsburgh gets in. If you narrow that down to 2 in 6, and you just say that Josh Papali'i's going to play in the prop position because Slade was talking him up and he's an incumbent, you've probably got Cotter, Horsburgh, Walsh, Arrow, Gilbert, and somebody else. I think it made like 5 or 6 guys that you've got to fit into those 2 spots. Probably Capewell's the 6th one. And so Horsburgh, I think, is probably going to miss out this year just because he hasn't been there before, and they've got a couple of other guys that can. If Cotter comes out and has another couple of good games, I don't even think it's a question. He'll be picked over Horsburgh. Yeah. There is a risk, but I think given his upside and it's only a small risk, you can 100% jump on with pretty high confidence.
Beautiful. If you still have Cam Murray, I think go Cam Murray straight to JDB rather than going to Horsburgh.
Yes, better, right? I think that's probably still the way to go. There is a little bit of a price difference, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's 60k. If you're going from a cheaper guy to up, then you probably can't go all the way to JDB. But from big guy to downgrade, then that, just based on pure scoring, I think is going to be the play. But yeah, Hors could average 60 going forward, like easily. He did 56 without even trying on the weekend. So he literally just ran straight. People just ran hard and straight. missed him, got 4 tackle breaks, and then only had 1 offload and 30 tackles. So I think the 30 tackles increased back to that 40 in previous weeks as well. Just such a great buy and crazy. He's come out of nowhere, hasn't he? And Sticky kind of mentioned that he could easily play him 80 as well. So there will be games where he has to. If there's a HOA or anything like that, then it's like, Hors, get out there, do your thing. Very interesting. Let's speak about Tohu now. So probably the biggest thing that I'm kind of looking at the last day is just how many sort of HIAs and issues that they had on the weekend. So likely he probably wasn't going to play 80. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I initially had him as down, probably playing 80 minutes, but there have been a couple of issues with the Warriors and their forward pack. So although he started at 80 to begin the season, with so many that knee just sort of recurring, bothering him, he was out for a couple of weeks with that scar tissue, and then he missed one, and then he sort of did it but came back. And it's come out that he's basically got loose MCL ligaments, but they aren't really damaged. So I think they're more prone to being injured until it strengthens up or something like that. So I think you can definitely wait now that they have the round 12 bye. And if he gets through that solid, you might look to pick him up in round 13. But yeah, definitely give him a week because his break even is still decently high after that 27 2 games ago.
Yeah, just wait. There's so many mids that are doing well at the moment. I definitely have him on my watch list, though. We spoke about DeBellin pretty clearly just then before, but 2 70s in a row. And really, there's no chance of going under 50, really, in those bigger minutes there, sort of around that 70 minutes, I think we're going to slot him down for. That means that he's probably, he's priced at just over 50 now. Do you still think there's probably 80k to make? Do you think he can get to around that 800?
I mean, when you look at his last 4 scores, as soon as he moved into that really big minute roll, 67, 56, 76, 72, that's elite. He could be up to 850 or more if he keeps that up. So I think he's still definitely a great buy with money to make. It would have been nice to jump on earlier, but still definitely one to really get excited about. Yeah,
absolutely incredible what he's up to at the moment. Obviously, if you take away that 7 with the line break assist, try assist, which he kind of just put him into a gap and Sullivan did the rest. But it's still 65 and that's amazing. And that is that 850k that you're talking about there. So awesome work from him. All right, let's talk about Ford now. And he's obviously a dual position guy, 537. Break even's a little bit higher after the 32. My main issue now is just that he's had a couple of concussions this year. What do we think about that? Obviously, it probably works out for them that they have the bye next week. If you're a head-to-head player, is he just an immediate sell? And then thoughts on with him for overall. Obviously, we spoke about what you're doing with him.
Yeah, for head-to-head, think about it this way. If you've got bye rounds off, you miss him for 3 weeks. You've got round 11, 12 out, and then you're not even going to have him for 13. So I don't really see a lot of point keeping him when he's not going to be making money in that round 13. That overall score you'd want for round 13 is the only reason why you'd hang on to him at the moment, because he should be more expensive than he is, but he just has so many negatives in his game that he probably limits himself to that 40 sort of score. I think he's probably a good sell this week if you can move him on to an equivalent. So somebody who's going to also play round 13 or round 13, round 16, something like that. It's just a little bit annoying because he was pretty useful for our origin plans. But if you can move him to somebody else who fixes that role, it's probably a good move.
Yeah, well, I suppose you're thinking about it now and you go, he misses 16. You're literally holding him for 13 only, basically, and his money-making has stopped. So if you look at it that way, and he misses the next 2 games, holding him for 1 week and then trading him out straight after that, it just doesn't bode well. Like, especially when he doesn't have the ceiling at all. Like at the moment, he's missed 22 tackles in 3 weeks, and no guarantee he does come back for round 13 either if he's having these lingering concussion symptoms after having 2 this year as well. So yeah, I just think he's a pretty clear sell. Obviously, in your sake, you're like, oh, I'm not sure who to get for him this week. Don't waste a trade just because if you can play 17 this week, but if you want to trade him, happy for you to do it. Another guy we are probably suggesting to get rid of is Cam Murray. What an absolute shocker. And then you've just had that press conference there where they were talking about the kind of minutes he was going to play and the role that he's playing there. He was only going to play, about 60, 61, 62 minutes, I think it was. There's about 8 or 9 minutes left in that game. But 29 in this one, 28 tackles, 115 metres. Just the negatives this year has been wild. The missed tackles, the penalties every week, and the errors that he's coming up with are just wild anyway. And then obviously the change of kind of role with him. 758k now, you have to get rid of him, right? Still owned by 30 people in the top 100. Crazy.
Yeah, it's a big sore point, unfortunately, for those who held on and copped the 60k price drop, but you have to get rid of him. He's going to be somebody you were going to sell over the Origin period anyway, but yeah, he could be sub 700 by then. And I mean, you'd be trading up to get to Ryan Matterson, for example, so get off him now, I think. Okay,
let's talk about that then. Let's go have a little chat about Matterson. I think I've got him later in the piece. I'll find him while you're talking. But what are your general thoughts on Matto right now? Would you go straight up to him, or is there a worry that he plays some Origin as well?
Yeah, I don't know what to think, hey, because some days it seems like he's probably on the outer of the squad and there's other options, and other times there's just so many injuries that he's got to be in that conversation. So it's very interesting whether you go for Ryan Matterson or Hopgood. Ryan Matterson probably is going to be the better scorer if he manages to stay in clubland. And that PPM off the bench, he did it last year, and we saw last week 67 and 52 minutes. That's just so insane. Good. That's so good if you have him in your squad already.
Watching that game, it was just like he's just terrorizing them. He'd run 10 meters, then hit the defense and go another 5 or 6 or 7, and then potentially get a tackle break or an offload in that. It was just wild. And you're right, he did that last year as well. And that's the only thing, you're getting him priced at probably where he's going to be. Like, he might get to an 830 or 840, but really the thing is there with Matto that he's just such a top gun that he's going to get you that 60 every week. Like, there's very, very low likelihood he goes under 50, and he's not somebody you have to worry about unless he plays Origin. So if he doesn't play Origin, you get him in now and you have him for every big buy round, and he's almost like captaincy material as well for some of them. Obviously, there's going to be weeks where guys like Sean Johnston in round 13 could be a good one, but Matterson's such a safe option as well. So yeah, he's such a clear, great guy to have in your side for sure. Let's go to the next guy on our list, which is going to be Mr. Mitchell Moses. So unfortunate if you do own him in your squad. He's not owned by a lot of people, obviously 11.6% in the top 5k, but after that 100 last week, you were cheering and then get a 29. Out this week as well. If you own Moses, is he a clear hold?
Yeah, I think so. He's just going to be so incredibly valuable with all those three buy matches with the Eels, the only club to do that. There is slight temptation to go to Dylan Brown at cheaper, but it's 1 week, guys. It's not really worth it. The only justification at all to trade him out would be that if he misses this week, he also misses 14. But that's not really enough. He's just going to be so much more valuable than tossing him after one match like that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. When he plays 16, he plays 17? Yeah, 16, 17, 19 there. That's so important. And we're going to be max trading a lot of the time during those kind of few weeks to get the right amount of guys on the park and good guys. And Moses is an 800k gun, averaging 59. Even with that 29 in his game, he's still so good. So hold on. It's unfortunate. You got to cop it this week. It's just unfortunate. Leave it at that. Oloapu, someone that I might have to bring into my side this week. General theory on him: 50 minutes at the moment, making a little bit of money, right? Slow and steady every week, 5 to 10k, whatever it's going to be. Likely gets into the starting side, maybe by round 14, you'd say, and that's probably when you need him. So you want to make a slow amount of money with him, and then get him as a player in 14 and 16. Which is going to be ideal for sure. What are your general thoughts on him? I'm kind of just trying to make a case because he's probably going to get into my side. It would be Ben Murdoch-Masila out for Oloapu, so I see that as probably an upgrade, let's be honest. And him and Isaiah Katoa in a very similar mold, both being that young fella, 18 years old. Oloapu not going to be that kicker, but I think he has a little bit more upside in running the footy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have very similar thoughts. If something very interesting too, he's a good sized body and he actually has pretty good defense. We see with Katoa, he's missed quite a lot of tackles in his young career so far. But Oloapu also is very work rate hungry. He almost reminds me of Dylan Brown. In 50 minutes on average, he's averaging 18 tackles, and a lot of players don't even manage that 5/8 in the whole game. So like Dylan Brown, who gets sort of the low to mid 20s per game, runs the ball and does some damage. Once he gets at 80 minutes, he's going to be very, very valuable. And I think with those good tackle numbers, you can sort of chuck him in your team now and let him slow burn, but he's probably not going to get above 300k unless he starts before round 14.
For sure. And the next two games are Warriors and Titans, so no squad that's going to blow him off the park. So really, as long as some attacking stats come as well, he can get solid 35 or something in his game and then kind of get his money making going. And 250k, I think, is the best cash cow of the week, even with them missing 13. Because most of us have a lot of halves, and that's kind of something I'm looking at as a small issue. But for me, it's like if you're playing your best 17, he might come into calculations in 14. He definitely would come into calculations in 16 with, guys like Johnston being out. And that probably allows you to hold someone like SJ in 16. As well, if he continues to score well. So keep him in your thoughts this week, guys. If you do need a downgrade option, he will be able to do a solid job and has some upside. Even if he only makes 50k over the next few weeks, then longer term, I think it can happen. Tyrell Sloan, let's talk about him. And 40 odd break even, 46 it says here on 40 stats, but I'm not sure the exact. 414 is the price. 2 weeks in a row of bad scores, and can he bounce back, or do you just not even bother and you just pull the trigger and move him on?
Yeah, I think it's definitely time to move him on. You're only hanging on for that round 13 score now, and he could be sort of 360, 370 by then easily. I did listen to the NRL Physio's podcast where he said that 2 weeks ago he sort of came out of a tackle clutching his shoulder, and since then he hasn't really had the explosiveness or work rate, so there's potentially that he might be carrying something. Wow. So I think that's even more excuse to just jump off.
Yeah, so that's in that 43 game he got, and then 18 and 10 since then, and under 100 meters in both. So, okay, that's very interesting. Okay, well, who do you move him on to then? Do you try and go up to Drinkwater?
I think that's one of the best moves. I also like a couple of the wingers that we might talk about later, but Drinkwater probably as a fullback in a Cowboys team that had a good performance for... actually looked pretty strong for the first time this year. He could be in for some better scores and just really strong through the origin period, playing 13 and 16.
Beautiful. And if you don't need a wing fullback, you've got that kind of covered. Who would you go for around, within 100k?
Oh, look, I'd be almost tempted to go Billy Smith, but he doesn't play 13. But you've also got the guys like Tatola. There aren't a lot around his price, unfortunately. So you've got like your Fleglers, Tatolas, Billy Smiths, but they're all kind of 50-50 and not that great. I'd probably prefer to go up.
Yeah, or then maybe Oloapu. Probably
yeah.
Beautiful. Sonny Luke at 312k. Is he just now a clear sell?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we were hoping for that 30, 40, 50 minutes type role, and 18 on the weekend was not very good at all. I think that you probably do move him on now. He doesn't even have that a great work rate when he is playing decent minutes, so he hasn't scored above 30 since round 6. I think you just move him on.
Yeah, the only game where he actually tackled a lot was that Tigers game, and he got 27 in 51 minutes, so not nice there at all. That did involve a sin bin, which wasn't nice, but 12 meters gained. That first game we saw from him when he ran 65, and the second game 55, that was really exciting, and since then he's dropped off on that front, and it's just been kind of a tackle bot, missing tackles and the odd error and penalty, and yeah, not great. So that's the thing with him now, is that likely, even if he does come out and get that sort of 30, 40 minutes and get a 20 odd, he still loses money. So it's a tough one now. He doesn't play 13. Yeah, if he can, I'd try to move him on. Try and go up, obviously, but obviously Oloapu is someone that you can look at, I think. There's just no real cheap options. If you do want to go early on to Fade, then you can do that as well. Okay, let's go to Drinkwater at 533. He's made a little bit the last few weeks. Hasn't really killed coaches that haven't brought him in, but he still looks like a good option and is starting to score a little bit more consistently. He hasn't had any try assists or tries the last 2 weeks and got a 41 and a 44. Big kick meters as well on that left-hand side. Even bigger than all the games that he's played so far. General thoughts on Scotty, and would you look to bring him in if you are in need of a fullback this week? But Bula has kind of taken over and done pretty solidly.
Yeah, Bula has been fantastic. He doesn't play 13, but he's a must in anyone's sides. If for some reason you don't have him yet, definitely buy him this week. Drinkwater at 533, a bit discounted to how he started the year. He's put 3 good scores together. And do keep in mind that 44 was in the Mudfest in that after the rain at Magic Round. So that's actually a pretty strong performance by him. And those kick meters now make him very, very interesting indeed. I would definitely recommend him as a buy in the wing fullback, particularly as he also plays round 16.
Yeah, exactly. He's a very cheeky one to slot in over the next few weeks, especially, if you don't do it this week, you're not going to get absolutely killed, likely, unless he gets a 60-odd, he'll make sort of 30k. The 2 turnover tackles kind of puts a little dent in it as well last week. Would have been down to a 36 without them. But yeah, the closer to the line, he gets involved a little bit in the tackling side. Yeah, I'm still a little bit burnt by him, but yeah, if you need a fullback, then he's obviously going to be that guy. So you said Bula there. If you still don't own him, you would buy him at 346, even against the South?
Yeah, I think so. He's just shown that he's got what it takes to score well in fantasy. He's a little bit of a bigger body, runs for big meters, tackles and tackle breaks quite well, and his defense is really good too. That try saver on the weekend, fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, 45 against the Panthers. Well, they did win that game. And 46 last week. He hasn't scored a try yet, although he has got a couple of assists. Just looks like a fantastic fantasy option all around.
Yeah, definitely. I'm worried about him this week, but I said that a couple of weeks ago against the Panthers boys, so that's that. Sullivan obviously had a cracking game last week. I mentioned him as being a potential option this week if he was to get the start, but he's still off the bench, and at 50 minutes, he does have to score tries each and every week to be a great asset. He did kick goals though as well, so that was something cheeky. Would you have any thought in Sullivan at that 378 price or no?
No, not unless he's a late switch to the starting side and Ben Hunt goes to hooker or something. But I think there's absolutely no safety in the Dragons at all at the moment. It seems like the death throes of a coach about to get out, just throwing up new things like dropping Jacob Little because his defense is worse when the stats say it's actually better, and doing all this shuffling just to make something stick to the wall, and they still lose. So I think Lomax could be back at any time. That takes goals away from him potentially. It's like 2 or 3 red flags to every tick.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose the only big thing there is round 13 he'll play 7, so there's that as well. But yeah, tough one to slot into your side. Dylan Brown, definitely not a tough one to slot in your side. Thankfully, I have got him the last 2 years for some decent scores at some point anyway. Started with him, and then this week brought him in a little bit early, but this year brought him in a little bit early. It worked out the last 2 especially. Would you still look at him as a good buy now that he's priced at 50, or do we think that those 40s, probably not this week with Moses being out, but on a general basis, do we expect more 40s from him, or has his attack been unlocked, given you're an Eels fan and obviously listen in to Arthur in a little bit as well and what he says?
I am a little bit more optimistic about him now. It seemed that he's sort of been told to run the ball more and they're going left a bit more. So for any Penasini buyers, because Moses was being so right side dominant, it's not so much good news for him. And it's better news for Dylan Brown and Maka Sivo and guys like that. He was electric on the weekend. He nearly single-handedly won us that game when we were trying so hard to lose it. And no Moses this week means he'll be doing even more kicking and running the show. Could be a third 70 in a row.
Yeah, for sure. And I would absolutely love that. So, yeah, we wouldn't push you away from him. He will make money over the next few weeks anyway. Plays round 13, misses round 14, but all the big buys. So he's obviously a good one to pair, as you outlined in your halves video. Pairing with Johnston, obviously, like I do myself, and potentially one of those Cleary Hines is the way there. And then, any of those sort of cheap guys like Katolas and stuff like that. He pairs really well with. So Crichton, Angus Crichton. So obviously people are going to look at him this week, given he has the start. He got a 50-odd last week. Any thought into slotting him in your side, or just with the buy, potential origin, we can still wait with the high break even?
Yeah, there's only really 1 or 2 positives with him. He's a historical gun, but he's coming back from injury. He hasn't really played 80 minutes yet. They don't have an amazing buy schedule for overall players, and there's origin as well. So I think it's definitely wait and see what happens for him.
Yep, I completely agree. Just want to point that out there because I know the more casual fan will, or might not be watching our videos, but would be looking at him and go, oh yeah, he averages 60 all the time. So yeah, something to think about. Reece Walsh came out with a good one, so hopefully you did hold on to him. There's still 42% of teams in the top 5K that do own him. You're just hoping he doesn't play Origin now, right? But he does have 2 tough games the next few weeks. Is that still fine enough to hold him? And I think just the wing fullback's too tough, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's a good chance he'll play Origin, but if Ponga comes out after that, fresher off the bye week and does really well, it could be good for him. So Reece Walsh might end up 18th man for Queensland, but then if he doesn't end up making any game time, he still might be fresh for club and things like that. So I think you just have to hold him in case you get that round 13 score as well, and he's just been scoring pretty well in general. I mean, why would you sell him after he's just scored you a 50? Yeah,
just definitely something to think about for sure. Yeah, people are worried about those next couple of games, but yeah, he is electric and he can do it in any week, even against some of the better teams. Okay, Finefeuiaki, I'm trying to get his name right, from the Cowboys there, getting closer. 26 minutes. He actually looked really strong on the weekend. 10 tackles. He had 1 tackle break there. 51 meters gained. I suppose the question mark here is, if he is an edge, what happens with him? He obviously took the minutes off for Luki on the weekend. He probably will do the same, but if there is an injury to like someone like Goz on the other side there, then he looks really good, and he could be someone that, at that real cheap price, could play a part because they don't have a buy all the way until 15. I don't know, just some general thoughts on him. People have been looking at him slightly there.
Yeah, one of the best names we've had in rugby league for a while. But yeah, I think you can't look at him until there's some more injuries. Nanai is suspended for 3 more weeks, I think. So he probably has a limited time frame anyway if somebody does go down injured. If he ends up working his way into the team in the future, he could be a really interesting option. So one to chuck a star on and keep an eye on for now, but not bring in.
Yeah, that's much safer. Yeah, you can see people like with no cash cows around be looking at him for sure. Hopgood we've spoken about briefly, 719k, price just above the 50 mark. Not highly owned as well, and obviously he's going to play 13, 16, 19 if there's no Origin. 43 break even now, guys, so he will just make money even if he does score in that low 50s over the next couple of weeks anyway. What are your general thoughts for going further with him?
Yeah, Hopgood, he needs 65 to 70 minutes or above. Like in 55 to 60 minutes, he can either score you a 50 like he did on the weekend, or he can score you a 39 like he did a couple of weeks back. So he does have missed tackles in him. He's cleaned that up a little bit in past weeks. He hasn't gone above 2 in the last 3, which is really nice. But until he's confirmed playing really big minutes, I don't think he can jump on. I think the play will be to get on in round 13 when Paulo's also gone for Origin. And if Ryan Matterson also misses Origin, that's basically guaranteed 80 minutes and whopping big scores like the beginning of the year.
It does sound great, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm probably going to wait personally, but I can understand why you would push that way. If you need an edge, and he's the only one that's kind of got that dual, which is nice as well. So there's just so many mid options at the moment, isn't there? Okay, let's go to Garrick. You wanted to bring him up for sure at 491k. I haven't seen him that low in a good while. Started the year at 646, so there's 150 down. Break even still fairly high, and game this week is against the Sharkies, so that could be a little bit of a tough one. He keeps getting these random line breaks. So I was kind of blown up because I was thinking about bringing him in Supercoach. They gave him 3 line breaks, and that one where they send it out left and there's like a little bit of a gap in front of him. He runs towards the gap, they close it up, and then he cuts back on the inside, and they've given him a line break for both of those. So yeah, it's a strange one. 190 meters. You'd have that 2 line breaks in there, 1 goal. They've just been so bad. Like, would you look at picking him up now? You know, potentially against the Sharks, where he could go for like a 30 odd or 40?
If you needed a wing fullback this week and for some reason can't reach Drinkwater, I would definitely consider him, but more likely a buy next week for me. The interesting thing about him is that he is a pretty good scorer in general, and although he's a winger that on average about 3 goals a week pushes him up 6 points. So when he goes big, the whole team goes big, and he will just feed off those goals and tries in general. The reason why he's cheap is because he had that injury affected 10 in 27 minutes versus Panthers, a little bit of low on versus Tigers, and then at center he just doesn't get the base stats and the run meters and the tries that he got. So That's why he's dropped so much, and he's definitely one you can potentially look at bringing in as an alternative to Drinkwater, but he's probably one to wait on and hope he drops just a fraction more first.
Yeah, and then would have the potential to play at fullback if they want to in round 13 if Tommy's out. So I suppose if Tommy's not ready to go, then that's going to be an interesting one as well. So yeah, there's a few issues with potentially picking up, but yeah, he's obviously a solid one. He can definitely get back to that 650, but Manly need to definitely improve. Talk about Johnston, then. You have him in your side, and you're hoping that he has a bunch of good weeks in him. That 17 was his lowest of the year 2 weeks ago. A 40 last week with 2 tries. Not exactly what you're looking at. Obviously, 87 metres was his lowest. So the last 2 weeks have been really weird, to be honest, as a non-Johnston, just like a non-watcher anyway. Would you still be looking to potentially pick him up at that weird price? Like, he could be someone you go from Sloan to him, but that still feels a bit yucky, I think.
Yeah, he's probably not as good as I thought he was going to be, but he's still one that can make you money. Last year, he peaked mid-season in that huge try-scoring spree, 660k under the old salary cap. It's been increased a bit, so that'd be more like 700k. Wow. So there's potentially a lot of value there, but the thing is, given that their right wing is a lot weaker this year, the kickers are targeting Milne and Thompson, so he's not getting those really big kick return meters. And also because Campbell Graham has been so good this year, they've been going right more. So the theory would be potentially maybe you could pick him up in round 13 when Campbell Graham goes to Origin. Surely he has to. He's setting it on fire. Then they'd have to go left more where their weapons are, and he'd get that mid-season try-scoring spree like last year. So you can potentially wait on him, but against the Tigers this week, against the Bunnies that can beat the Broncos, Storm and Panthers in consecutive weeks, I'm really keen to see if he can score a couple more tries.
Yeah, he definitely is an owner. You're like, come on, it's the right week now. Let's go a few more to go. We've got the Raiders boys mainly. Hudson Young at 706k. Break even still fairly lowish at 40. Low ownership as well. 6 people in the top 100, but 2% in the top 5k. They have a pretty clean run. Para, Manly, Rabbitohs, Tigers, Warriors before their round 16 bye. He had a shocker to start. He was priced at 770, so he's still about, 65k under that. He has made a lot of his cash back already. He got down to 626, but super consistent now. He hasn't missed 50 since round 5. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I really like him. He has scored a lot of tries, but he is that type of player. Yeah. He does go over the line quite often. He did that last year. He had a similar try scoring rate, and he's probably in the edge of the Origin conversation. I don't think he makes it, but if there's another injury or two and they decide that they don't like Ryan Matterson for some reason, he's potentially someone who might play, but I think he's probably going to be safe. Plays 13, plays 19. If you pair him with somebody who has the buys in opposite weeks, like Zach Hosking, who has around 13 and 19 buys and plays around 16, that could be a really, really nice combination.
Lovely. I like it. We got 2 more to go, and that is Taniela Paseka. We spoke about him a little bit last week. Still has a fairly low break even at 32. 600k, probably does get to around that 700k mark, I think. He had a bit of a shocker in the first half last week and then kind of brought it back. But those minutes of 58 was exactly what I was expecting. I can see him getting a 55 to 60 points this week. So I just wanted to point that out there, guys, that his run meters were kind of normal. Tackles were a little bit low, to be honest, and did miss a few in that one. But yeah, tackle breaks and offloads were involved in this game. I can see him coming out and doing really well. Any thoughts on him, or would you look to avoid? He almost feels a little bit too expensive for me now. Like, yeah. I know that he's getting really big minutes with Gerbo out for a month or so, but he was sort of low 500s 3 or 4 weeks ago. Now he's 600, so you definitely need him to be scoring 50 plus guaranteed to be really worth it. He also has the round 14 buy, so you might need to sell him around then or just after when Gerbo is back. Just seems a little too short and a little too late for me, but I would really love him as a draft pickup. I snatched him up last week, which was really nice. Makes sense.
He's close, but I don't know if I really like him as a slam dunk option.
Yeah, I suppose when you look at the first few weeks, he was 490k, 500k. That just makes it very hard to try and buy him now at 600 for sure. Let's go to Tapine to finish with. He's in your team. You did well to hold on to him over the last few weeks, so kudos to you on that one. Very low ownership now, considering he was much higher in the 20% for a while there in the top 5k. Still has a high break even, guys. And if you don't own him, would you look to pick him up now, or would you kind of wait again another week or so and hopefully he does lose a little bit more cash and you can get him at like 670 or something like that?
Yeah, I'd wait one more week. It's no worry at all to wait. You need to just check that he's going to get those minutes. He did come out and say in an interview after team lists last week that he feels like he's got more in him and he's got more minutes. And we did see that a little bit. He went from 49 and 50 to 53 minutes, a massive extra 180 seconds of playtime. But that's what we're hoping for. We were hoping for sort of low to mid 50s minutes and a 60 average or something like that compared to the high 40s minutes to the low 50s average. So they're the signs you want to see. You just probably want to see a little bit more.
Yeah, where the tackle breaks and offloads? He had a game round 20 last year, 13 tackle breaks and 4 offloads. Come on, man. Where is it? What's his highest this year? His highest this year has been 4. He had 3 last week. He's had a 4 and he's had 4 1s and a bunch of 0s. That's disgusting, isn't it? For someone that is as good as him. Yeah, guys like bloody Jake Granville get more tackle breaks half the time, so.
That's wild, hey?
I think we'll leave it at that, guys. That was a fun one. I hope that really helped you all, you guys. But still, we're just lacking in cash cows these days. And I think big well done. A little shout out to everyone who picked up Nicarima a bunch of weeks ago, because he has come out and done really well as one of those kind of hit and hopes, and a 250k has kept his spot as well. So a big shout out to that. But other than that, there's not much going on. And a big hope to Valence Tafade next week if you hopefully he gets his spot. Good luck, guys, this week, and have a good one.